Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now I'm very lucky to have some fantastic tools in my workshop. I've got a wonderful lathe, I've got some great equipment and some fantastic machinery which helps me do what I do. But that's not the case for everyone starting out. So to help make wood turning feel a little more accessible, I've borrowed what's in this box. It's a wood turning lathe from Record Power, and cost wise it is 1/10 of the cost of the lathe it's sat on. So let's get it out of the box, we'll get it set up and let's see what we can do with it. Well, there we go. After 5 minutes of putting things together, we're just about set. Now you may wonder why I've gone to the extent of borrowing this lathe from Record Power, and it's really quite simple. I get an awful lot of comments from people about how I've managed to inspire them in their wood turning, and a lot of people as well who have been encouraged to start the hobby from watching my videos. I also get an awful lot of people saying that they don't have the room, the space, the money for the equipment, and I completely get it. Times are hard at the moment and we all have difficulties in our own particular ways. So what I wanted to try and do was to give people an alternative, or to show people a way that they can get into the hobby without spending too much money and without the large costs for the extra equipment that you would normally need in order to pursue this pastime. So it is my intention to start releasing smaller videos alongside of my other work, where I'm going to be creating pieces with this lathe that a hobbyist or beginner would be able to try, and also as a way for you to be able to fund your hobby. Now wood turning is expensive even at the lowest levels, but if you're able to create things which you can give away as gifts for friends or to even sell, then it's going to help fund your hobby. And if you can manage to do that, then everything becomes an awful lot less expensive. So there you have it. This is the DML 250, which is the entry range lathe from Record Power. It has a 10-inch swing over the bed. In other words, you can turn pieces up to 10 inches deep. It's got a 375 watt motor. It has 5 spindle speeds, which are 450, 980, 1550, 1940 and 2640 RPM. And these are changed via altering the gearing inside here. Compatibility wise, it's exactly the same threads as my existing lathe. It takes MT2 fittings and it's got an M33 thread on the spindle. Weight wise, it's 34 kilograms, and that is probably one of its biggest advantages. If you're limited for space in your workshop, or you don't have a workshop at all, then this is something that you could keep underneath the bench or in a cupboard, then either take outside onto a desk or put onto your workbench and use it as and when you want to. So if you're worried about space in your workshop or wondering where you can start turning, then this size of lathe is something which is going to make wood turning just that little bit more accessible. Now in the box you also get a faceplate which screws onto there. The idea is that you can screw this onto your piece of wood and then mount it that way. It also comes with a 4-prong drive center and a nice live center to make it nice and easy to work on spindles or other pieces working between centers. We have knockout bar as well to make removal, sorry Hooch, get out of the way, nice and easy. And a range of spanners to help remove the faceplate. Also comes with a 6-inch tool rest and a wonderful camlock banjo, which is absolutely solid. It's the same mechanism That's on the larger one, and they are rated as one of the best banjos in the industry. Same goes for the tailstock. Very easy lock and release. All wonderful smooth action. Now, cost-wise, this particular lathe at current is selling for around about £229, which for what you're getting is very little money indeed. To give you an idea, the lathe it's sat on in this configuration is about £2,500, so it is less than 10% of the cost of the big one. Okay, so that's a good overview of the lathe we're going to be using for the series. So I think it's about time we actually start making something. Now, what I've got here is a piece of firewood. Now, the last thing I wanted to do was bring out an expensive piece of wood, so I have literally just gone into my firewood pile and hacked this out. This is, I think it's a piece of beech. It's got some spalting. It's got an awful lot of worm damage, but when we're first learning and practicing, then we don't need to be using expensive wood. Now, I want to try and make a wand from this. It's going to be a nice, easy project and something which people like to buy and gift to their children and things like that. And it's a wonderful gift if you've got any nieces and nephews or children or grandchildren. So we're going to make a wand. Now, if you notice, this isn't exactly straight, so I need to pick a center line through this area here, so we make sure we get as much wood used as possible. Right, so that's got the center point there. Okay, this is thicker in this area here, so I'm going to use this bit for the handle, and then this is going to be the end of the wand on this end. So I'm going to put the 4-prong drive spurt into the headstock. Place the centre of our wood on there. Put the live spurt in this end. Bring it up to our midpoint there. Lock it off and tighten it up. When it's nice and tight, we can just lock it off, and now it's nice and secure. Now I've got the lathe set on the middle band, so this will start spinning at 1,550 RPM. Now, quick safety notice: when you are doing anything with the lathe, you need to keep yourself as safe as possible. So I'm wearing a protector for my ring. I'm not wearing any other jewellery as well. If you had long sleeves, you want to make sure that there's nothing flappy that can get caught in anything that spins. And we also need to protect our face. Now, basic face shields like this can be purchased for about £10 to £15, and they're available in most hardware shops. Or you can spend a little bit more for about £40 to £50 and get a very, very good shield that will last you a lifetime. And also, when you're turning, it's advisable to use face masks, something like this, which is PPF3 rated. And these are very, very inexpensive indeed. I'll be putting links to everything in the description below if you fancied having a go yourself or were interested in what we were using. Okay, now there's one thing we haven't really looked at yet, and that's the tools that we're going to be using. Now, the ideal tools for anybody who starts off are this sort of thing. These are carbide tip tools, and this is the new set from Record Power, which I did a review on a few weeks ago. Now, cost-wise, these are about £90 each. I think you can get the set for 250, which is up there in terms of costs for carbide, but they are incredibly good quality. If you don't have money to spend on things like this at the start, which is quite understandable, then carbide tool sets can be obtained for about £50 for a set of 3. But no matter what you go for in terms of carbide tools, you will find that the tips will stay sharp for an awful lot longer, and also the tools you require to keep these sharp cost about £6, whereas the equipment needed for the traditional style tools is going to set you back around £200 to £400. Okay, so we're about to start. I've set my tool rest to a height where the tip of my tool is going to be midway in with the wood. I'll just move it a little bit further away so I can position the flat of the back of the tool on the rest, and then just gently move it forward until it engages with the wood. I'm not trying to try and dig it in, I'm just going to let the wood gently come into the blade and allow it just to nice and easily take off chunks. Okay, those first few cuts there were releasing an awful lot of dust, so I'm just going to put a face mask on just to keep myself safe. Okay, that's the initial roughing done. We've still got a bit more wood to take off in this area. And given that this is low down here, I think we're best to have this as the handle and this is the main flourishing area of the wand. I'm sure there's a proper name for it, but I don't know what they are. So I think I'll just get my pen out. Now, because we've got a drive spur and a live spur sticking into this piece of wood, we need to keep clear of the points going in. So I'm not going to do anything past that point or past that point there. So this is going to be the bottom of the handle, and remember, hopefully it's going to be for a child, this one, so the top of the handle area is going to be there. And then we're going to do some sort of design and have it slowly taper down to the tip of the wand. Now, that initial turning there, I was just doing with the roughing tool, which is the square tipped carbide. Now we can carry on with that, or we could move on to a round tipped carbide, which is going to give us a little bit more control. It doesn't quite remove as much material, but it allows us to create more shapes. Okay, right, this is the round tip tool. Okay, this round tip tool, we can use it in a couple of ways. We can either go straight on like the square tip, or we can turn it more to the side. When it's on its side at like a 45-degree angle, it acts as a shear cutter. So it's only removing smaller amounts of wood, but the surface finish will be slightly better. So now I'm going to start defining the differences between the main shaft area of the wand and the handle. Okay, apart from having chosen the worst piece of wood I could ever choose in my entire life, it's going okay. Now we've got a basic shape for the handle. It needs a little more refining, but it's okay for now. So I'm just going to start taking this one shaft down. I'll move back onto the square tipped roughing tool just to allow us to do a nice clean passes across here to keep it nice and even. And we want to be tapering it down to about 1/3 of an inch, I think. Okay, that went quite well. It's starting to take shape. We've lost a bit of wood around there, although I'm not necessarily sure we had the wood in the first place, because this is really quite rotten wood. You can see all the wormholes all over it, but it'll certainly give us a rustic wand. And the third type of carbide tool, which is available with most kits, is what's classed as a detail tool. You can get these with slightly rounded tips or sharp tips, and these are ideal for parting off at the end, and you can also add small details into the pattern on the whatever you're turning as well. So we're going to use this just to keen up the detail and put a few patterns in the handle, and then add to any of the shapes that we feel necessary. Okay, there we go. It's very basic, it's very rough, but when you're starting off, it's better just to get the oldest, grottiest wood you can find and just have a go at creating something. Now, we're going to put a bit of sandpaper over this. I'm going to start with about 120 grit. Now, when you are sanding wood, especially when you're doing it indoors, you need to be able to make sure that you're safe. So use whatever shop vac you have to try and suck away dust as it's being created, and always wear a good quality face mask. This is the face mask I always wear for sanding. It keeps out over 99% of the smaller dust particles in the air. And they're not that expensive. I think it's about 20–30 pounds will get you the filters and the mask itself, and they do last for a very, very long time. And it is worth spending a bit more money on a good face mask as opposed to anything else. This is the thing that's going to keep you the safest. Okay, so for sanding, I've moved the tool rest out of the way, and I'm just going to be holding the sandpaper underneath the piece loosely in the hand. Don't wrap it round like that, because if it catches, it could start hurting your hand. So just nice and loosely underneath, and just moving it up and down. Okay, nice, quick and simple. I'm just going to put a bit of a finish on it just to protect the wood. This is a beeswax and mineral oil, and it is literally just a case of melting a bit of beeswax into some warm mineral oil, making sure it's mixed up thoroughly, and then when it sets, it does give a rather nice finish. This particular mix is about a 6:1 ratio, 6 parts oil to 1 part beeswax. If you add more with beeswax, you'll get a harder finish. Obviously, if you add less, then you'll get a softer finish. But this is going to nourish the wood and gives it a nice little sheen. It's not going to be a bright shine or anything like that, but I don't think this piece really needs it. Right, nice and rustic. Now, of course, when you're experimenting at home, trying out the different shapes of your wands, you can add a bit of colour in there as well. You can dye these black, gold, or anything you want, and they do start to look very, very nice and very desirable as well. I'm sure if you take some into work and start showing your friends, you're going to get a few orders for their relatives as well. Right, now that's rubbed in, I'm just going to again hold the cloth underneath it, turn the lathe on, and then just gently buff it in with my hand always staying underneath the piece. There we go. Done. All we've got to do now is take it off. Now, the removing of a piece like this is called parting off. And as we're working between two centres, we've got to part off on both ends. Now we can't do both while we're on the lathe, so we're going to do this end first. What we're going to try and do with the detail tool is to start nibbling away at this end so it gets thinner and thinner, and then rather than going all the way through, we'll stop it and then again saw off just this little bit, which will end up sanding to make good. Okay, right. That's it. I'll just quickly saw off these ends, give them a little sand, put some finish on, and then we're done. Okay, last bit of finish. And there we have it. A very rustic wand. Okay, I've got another piece of firewood. I think this is beech again, but I can't see any worm damage, thank goodness, this time. And we're going to make something else. Okay, there you are, nice and safely on lathe, all locked down. So we'll get this round again, and I'll tell you what we're making this time. Okay, there we go. It's not quite fully round, but it's good enough to get us started. Now this time we're going to make a little honey dipper. So we want the top of the piece to be around here. So I'll say there to about there is where we're going to make the dipping end. And a nice little handle to finish around there. Okay, if you're not sure what a honey dipper is, just quickly Google it. It's a small wooden tool that you use to plunge into honey to get it out. It has a bulbous end and little slots cut in it, which kind of grab onto the honey. So first of all, I'll use the detail tool to separate where the head's going to be from the main handle, and then we'll start shaping with the round carbide, I think. Okay, that's a very, very nice simple handle shape. We can put a little detail in there, I think, in a minute. Now we just need to slightly round over these corners. We don't want it a big kind of cylindrical lump on the end. We want this nice and curved. Now there's quite a few different ways we can do it. We can do it with the square carbide, just going around like that. On the side, just to round it over. We can fold over the edges with a round one, or again, going nice and flat. Or with a detail tool, we can start working on the side area of this tool and turning down that way. That's the great thing about wood turning, is that there's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way. It's a way that you prefer to do things. And once you get your own lathe and start turning and start experimenting, then you'll find the ways that you feel more comfortable. so much fun. I don't get to turn little things like this very often. I'm usually making bigger things out of bigger pieces of wood, and this is so liberating because it all happens so quickly in front of your face, and you can just be as creative as you want. Now, honey dippers have slats in this area, which again, like I said, they grab hold of the honey in order for it to work. Now, traditionally, we would use a normal standard parting tool to put these dips in, but we're only just starting off. We've only bought this set of tools, so I'm going to be using the detailed tool here to make those dips in. Worked far better than I expected it to. All right, excellent. Right, next thing now, it's sanding time. Okay, there we go. A bit of sanding's all it needed. So I can use the same finish for this as well, the beeswax and mineral oil, or you can just use a plain mineral oil by itself. Either way, it'll be food safe and it should last for many years to come. Right, I'm going to rub this in again with it spinning. Now, because I've got a fair bit of loose material in those little delves there, I'm just going to put a pair of safety glasses on just to keep those bits from my eyes. Okay, just quickly part it off in the same way as before. I might get a bit closer on both ends this time. Right, I'll just quickly cut these off. I'll sand it off the ends, so I'm just applying a bit more of that beeswax and mineral oil. And there we go. Beautiful. And that took us about 5 minutes to make. I'm quite sure that would make a very lovely gift for somebody, or somebody would want to buy that as a gift for one of their loved ones. Okay, it was a slightly different video this week, but I really hope you appreciate what I'm trying to do. This series of videos now will move off to other parts of the week. I'll probably end up releasing these on a weekend, and I'm going to try and get at least one extra video done per month. In the next few sessions, we'll be moving on from spindle work onto making bowls and vases and lots of other things as well. But I wanted to start off at the beginning with some basic spindle work so people can get used to making little things like this. They can get used to the feeling of the tool against the wood and starting to enjoy it. If you can make things like this, then they are saleable. People will buy them. And then once you've sold a few of these, then you can afford to get a chuck, which we'll start to look at next time. If you have any suggestions, I would really appreciate you leaving them in the comments as well. Now, I also mentioned last week that I'll be listing some items on eBay this week. and I'll be giving you details today. Unfortunately, that's been delayed a week because earlier on this week I had to go to see the dentist, and he spent an hour taking out 2 teeth, and it's left me a little bit swollen and a little bit under the weather for most of this week. So I promise you they will be done next week. So anyway, that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. And if you could share it as well, then that would be amazing. But apart from that, thank you very much indeed, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.